So I'm reading this question. I haven't even finished reading it, but it says, at the dock, the depth of the water is 2 feet at low tide and 58 feet at high tide, which occurs 6 hours and 12 minutes after low tide. So 6 hours and 12 minutes apart for high tide and low tide. Draw a graph showing the depth of water at the dock as a function of time since the high tide occurs. So I think we start out when high tide occurs, right? Find an equation for your graph. Okay, this is crazy, but I think it might be understandable if we say, okay, high tide, it says starting, draw a graph showing the depth of water at the dock as a function of time since high tide occurs. So high tide, remember, is 58, right? 58. Low tide is 2. And in between those things is 6 hours and 12 minutes. So if we have high tide and low tide, so high tide and low tide, since we're graphing trig functions and since it just goes up and down, up and down, up and down, I'm going to guess that we have high tide, low tide, and then from here to here, if this is time on the x-axis, then that's going to be 6 hours and 12 minutes. All right. 6 hours and 12 minutes, that's fine. And then the time from low tide to high tide again, I think, is 6 hours and 12 minutes, so it would go back up. And then it would just continue on, going from high tide to low tide, high tide to low tide. Again, from here to here is 6 hours and 12 minutes. I should put minutes on there. So that's what I'm thinking. And then it just repeats and repeats and repeats and repeats. It looks like to me that this is cosine. It starts out as cosine because we have a V shape here. 1 period, remember, from here to here till it starts over. 1 period is just 2 of those things, so it's 12 hours and 24 minutes. And if you do 24 divided by 60, we can get it as a decimal. So that's what I'm going to do right now. 24 divided by 60. That's 0.4. So that'll be 12.4 hours for the period. And then it looks like, well, what's the midline? That midline, remember, because cosine normally starts and goes around the x-axis. So this actually got shifted up. 58 minus 2 is 56. Cut in half. I want to know what this distance is, because it shifted up from here to there. So, well, I'll just get this distance. 58 minus 2, right? 58 minus 2, that's 56. And then cut that in half. 56 divided by 2 is 28. So here is 28, and there is 28. That's the amplitude. Oh, that's the amplitude, right? So that's nice. And then 28, that means this spot is 30. So we shifted up 30. So remember, I think it was the C value that was 30. And yeah, we just put the stuff in and write a formula. So just from looking at the formulas in our table, in the book, the period is supposed to be just 2 pi divided by omega, and we already know that the period is 2.4 hours. So we'll have, 12.4 hours. So that's going to be 2 pi divided by omega. Why do we want to find omega? Because we have, well, it's going to be cosine. So we have y equals the amplitude times cosine of omega times x minus the phase shift, phi, and then maybe the plus c out there. So that's shifting up or down. We already have that c value. I want to find omega, and so I'll switch those two, right? Because you can multiply by w and then divide both sides by 12.4. That will switch those two. So we get 2 pi divided by 12.4, and that equals approximately 0.507. So that's omega. Sweet. And yeah, I have omega, x and y. We don't need those. I have a. I have c. I need to know what the phase shift is, and there's a formula for phase shift. Phase shift is just, well, however much you move. Oh, yeah. If we had phi, then we could know what the phase shift is, but we don't. We don't have it. Okay, so what do? Remember, you gotta plug stuff in. So I'm gonna write down what I have so far. Y equals, what's a? A was 28. Cosine of omega 0.507 times the x minus the phase shift. I feel like the phase shift is going to be nothing. And then plus 30, because that moved up 30. The phase shift in this case, I'm pretty sure it's 0, but we don't know. How can I figure that out? Well, I know that this ordered pair, that's 0, 58. So I'm going to plug that in to this and solve for the phase shift to see if there is any phase shift. So I'll have 58 for y and 0 for the x. So that means that goes away. So I have 28 times the cosine of negative phi plus 30. So I'll subtract 30 minus 30. That's what? 28? 28 equals 28 cosine of negative phi. And divide by 28, and I just get 1 equals cosine of negative phi. And cosine don't care about no sine, so then that means, when does cosine equal 1? Well, that's just when phi is 0. So there we go. That is actually our equation. Y equals 28 cosine of 0.507x. Phi was 0, and then plus the 30. There's your function. It's a messy one. Good luck.